On New Year's Eve in Times Square, New York, my husband appeared on a global live broadcast and let his mistress publicly label me as the useless ex-wife he had to support. The whole internet watched as I was trampled into the dirt. In that moment, I didn't argue. I didn't lose control. I simply pressed the record button in silence. Later, I signed the divorce papers he had long prepared, left the marriage with evidence in hand, and turned toward a world of capital he would never be able to break into. By the time he realized his company was under investigation, the stock price was crashing, and his life was spiraling out of control. I was already on a different track, personally sending him off his pedestal. My ears were ringing. The sound of blood rushing to my head was louder than every bit of noise in the studio. On the 17-inch monitoring screen in front of me was the dazzling New Year's Eve broadcast from Times Square. In the lower right corner was a small window showing my husband, Ryan Blake, the CEO of my company, my legal spouse, and at this very moment the male lead in an anonymous exposé about his marriage. He smiled, perfectly composed, even raised an eyebrow at the camera. Then a female voice, processed through a voice changer, but one I would recognize even if I were dead, exploded through the speakers in front of billions of viewers. Emily Carter? Oh, you mean Ryan's ex-wife? Ex-wife. The word stabbed into my stomach like an ice pick. I was still breathing. On legal documents, I was still Mrs. Blake, but the world had already filed me away in advance. A decorative investment banking trophy wife who married up. That's all. The voice, Lily, Ryan's most capable young vice president, continued in a syrupy, fake sweet tone. 5 years of marriage. Zero contribution to the company. Can't even give him a child. Ryan's already been more than generous supporting her, and she still spends all day paranoid and suspicious. The comment feed went insane. Holy shit. Huge gossip. No wonder she never shows up. Turns out she's a parasite. Can't have kids and still squatting in that spot? Hashtag COS useless wife shot up the real-time trending list in the corner like a virus. The host completely lost control, pushing for details. Lily, who at this very moment was probably in the next lounge, patched in through the company's internal line, let out a soft laugh and added, "She can't even read a financial statement." Ryan gave her a consultant title and a $600,000 annual salary, and she actually thought she was worth that much? My nails dug into my palm. $600,000. That had been my annual bonus at Morgan Stanley before I got married, to support Ryan's startup. I sold my apartment and poured all my savings into his company, back when he couldn't even put together a coherent pitch deck. Did he give me shares? No. He said, "We're married. What's mine is yours." So now, his was his alone, and mine had become charity. The glow of the monitor washed over my face, deathly pale. The director was yelling in my earpiece, "Emily, cut the feed. Now!" I raised my finger, hovering over the disconnect button. Then I heard Lily's final sentence, this time without the voice changer. Clear, vicious, and smiling. A woman like that? Without Ryan, she wouldn't survive 3 days. My finger moved away. I pressed a different button. Record. On my phone screen, a red dot blinked silently. Fine. Talk. I'll let you talk all you want. The chaos after the broadcast ended hit like a tsunami. I sat on a cold folding chair backstage, watching Ryan leave surrounded by bodyguards. He didn't even glance in my direction. My phone exploded with notifications. The first was an official mass email from HR, due to severe damage to the company's public image, and by emergency resolution of the board. Emily Carter is hereby placed on indefinite suspension pending internal investigation. The second was from Ryan. In our private chat, the media is exaggerating. Don't respond. No comfort. No explanation. Not even a question. The third message popped up immediately after, from an unfamiliar number, but I knew exactly who it was. "Hey sis. Seen the news? So embarrassing for you." I stood up and picked up my bag. It was snowing outside. December snow in New York cut into my face like blades. I didn't call a car. In 10-centimeter heels, I walked 12 blocks back to the Upper East Side penthouse with Ryan Blake's name on the deed. Fingerprint recognition failed. 3 times. I tilted my head back as snow fell into my eyes. Then the door opened from the inside. Ryan stood there in a bathrobe, a glass of whiskey in his hand, the heavy smell of alcohol hitting me in the face. He looked me over and frowned. "What happened to you?" I was soaked through, my hair frozen stiff, looking like a beggar, and that was his first question. Lily was just joking, he said casually as he stepped aside to let me in. Like we were discussing the weather. It was for the show. Don't be so sensitive. I stood on the marble floor of the entryway, water spreading out around my feet. She almost destroyed me. My voice was hoarse beyond recognition. She didn't, he said, walking over and trying to put an arm around my shoulders. I dodged him. His hand froze in midair. Then he waved it away impatiently. You're still Mrs. Blake. That will never change. Stop making a scene, Emily. Go take a hot shower. Tomorrow everything goes back to normal. Back to normal. Like the past 5 years, swallowing every grievance. Playing the polished wife he needed. I looked up at the man I had loved for 7 years and been married to for 5. Let's get a divorce. The air went silent for 2 seconds. Then Ryan burst out laughing. Not a cold laugh, real. Amused. Incredulous laughter. He bent over laughing. Whiskey sloshing out of the glass. Emily. Sweetheart. He said, wiping the tears from his eyes as he walked over and pinched my chin, forcing me to look at him. Divorce? With what? Your suspended salary? That pitiful balance in your bank account? Or that, resume you haven't updated in 5 years? His thumb brushed against my skin, intimate in motion, icy in his gaze. The whole world knows you can't live without me. He leaned in, alcohol on his breath. Behave yourself. Being Mrs. Ryan Blake is your only value. He let go of me and turned toward the bedroom, waving his hand dismissively. Go shower. You smell poor. I stood there, listening to his footsteps fade away. Then I reached into my coat pocket and took out my phone. Still recording. The screen was lit up. Recording time, 47 minutes and 32 seconds. Including everything that had just been said. I pressed save. File name evidence01, just a joke and your value. The next day, Ryan flew to the West Coast to meet investors. Before he left, he gave my forehead a perfunctory kiss. Be good. Don't overthink it. Wait for me to come back. The door closed. I walked into the master bedroom and started packing. The walk-in closet was as big as a luxury boutique, its walls lined with Hermes and Chanel bags, custom couture dresses. All of them were gifts from Ryan, or more accurately, CEO's wife outfits he'd purchased with the company's PR budget. At least half of them still had the tags on. I glanced at them once, then turned and pulled open the bottom drawer. Inside were my old things, a theory suit dress I'd worn before getting married, slightly out of style but made of beautiful fabric, a few cashmere sweaters, and a hardbound notebook. I picked up the notebook and opened it. On the first page was a faded Polaroid. 25-year-old me and 26-year-old Ryan, squeezed together in the rundown Brooklyn apartment he used to rent, smiling at the camera without a trace of shadow. Beneath the photo, in my neat handwriting, were the words, investment target, Ryan Blake. All in. I closed the notebook and slipped it into my suitcase. Then I saw the roses. At some point, someone had been in the room. From the doorway to the bed, the entire master bedroom floor was covered in fresh red roses, still beaded with dew. In the morning light, the petals looked like congealed blood. On the nightstand sat a deep blue velvet box tied with a silver ribbon. My heart clenched. Was this an apology? Had Ryan realized he'd gone too far last night and chosen this cliched but effective way to make amends? I walked over, my fingers brushing the ribbon. I opened the box. There was no jewelry, no letter, only 3 used condoms. The rubber surfaces were sticky, curled up against the black velvet lining like something obscene, like insect eggs. Attached was a card. Printed text, helped you take out the trash. You're welcome, L. I stared at the 3 pieces of rubber. There was no anger, no disgust, only a cold, almost numb clarity. My phone vibrated. A video call request from an unfamiliar number. I answered. Lily's face filled the screen. She was clearly sitting in a private booth at some upscale bar, the lighting hazy and seductive. Ryan was beside her, one arm draped loosely over the back of the sofa behind her, his profile wearing a tipsy smile. Hi, Emily. Lily waved at the camera, her voice sickeningly sweet. Did you see my little gift? Do you like it? She turned the camera toward Ryan. Ryan, we're playing truth or dare. I lost, and my punishment was calling your wife to tell her how many condoms we used last night. Ryan glanced at the camera and smiled, not apologetic, but indulgent. Don't go too far. What's there to be afraid of? Lily leaned closer to the camera. Lowering her voice into a breathy whisper she made sure I could hear clearly. She won't get mad. She's used to it, right? Ryan? The camera shook, catching Ryan's profile. He took a sip of his drink, the corner of his mouth lifting as he said to the friends around him, "She is used to it." Laughter erupted. Lily turned back to the camera, her eyes unnervingly bright. "Oh, Emily, let me tell you a secret. Ryan's safe password, guess what he tried for the third layer? My birthday. It was wrong, but I appreciated the sentiment." She blinked. "You've already been eliminated by the system. Understand? Step down automatically. Do it with some dignity." The call ended. The dark screen reflected my own face. Pale, calm, fire burned in my eyes. I picked up my phone and replied to the message. Just one word, "Okay." Sent. Then I opened my contacts and scrolled to a name that had been dormant for a long time, Danielson. The youngest legend in Silicon Valley's venture capital circle, a man Ryan had desperately tried to ingratiate himself with, yet had never even managed to secure a meeting with. Also my college upperclassman. The phone rang twice before he answered. "Emily?" His voice was steady, tinged with surprise. "It's been a long time, Daniel." I heard my own voice, calm, as if discussing contract terms. "That survival reality show Capital Partnership you mentioned last year, are you still looking for a lead producer?" There was a 1-second pause on the other end. "I remember you said you wanted to focus on being Ryan's supportive wife. That was last year." I looked at the blood-red roses on the floor. "This year, I want to do something for myself." Daniel laughed softly, quiet, but genuine. "The position's yours. When can you get to California?" "Tonight." "Good." He didn't ask a single follow-up question. "Send me your flight details. I'll meet you at the airport." I hung up. I went back into the master bedroom, stepped over the roses, pulled the hardbound notebook out of my suitcase, and flipped to the last page. On the blank page was a single line I'd written in pencil 3 months ago. Late one night after Ryan had once again ditched me for Lily, Plan B, activation date, when he crosses the final line. Today, that line had shattered. At 10 that night, Ryan stumbled home drunk. He collapsed straight onto the sofa in the master bedroom, his tie loosened, breathing heavy. I walked over and crouched in front of him. "Ryan." I nudged him. "The safe. Open it." He didn't even open his eyes. "Tomorrow. Now." I grabbed his hand and pressed his finger onto the fingerprint lock. Beep. The first lock opened. I lifted his face and aimed it at the facial recognition camera. The second lock opened. Last was the password dial. The numeric keypad glowed a cold blue. "The password?" I asked softly, close to his ear. He mumbled a string of numbers. "Lily's birthday." "Wrong." He tried again, "The anniversary of the first time they slept together." "Wrong." The third failed attempt triggered a shrill alarm. The safe would permanently lock in 30 seconds. I looked at his drunken, utterly confident face. He was certain I couldn't open it. Certain I would always be his accessory. No nerve. No means. No way out. I reached out and entered my birthday. Beep, click. The third lock opened. Ryan muttered something on the sofa and rolled over. I pulled open the heavy door of the safe. There was no cash. No jewelry. Only documents. The top layer held the company's confidential equity agreements. The middle layer, property deeds. And at the bottom, a transparent folder with a single document inside. Divorce agreement. Party A, Ryan Blake. Party B, Emily Carter. Date of signature, 6 months ago. He had already signed it. Ryan Blake. His signature bold and sweeping. The ink long since dried. The line for Party B was blank, like a death sentence prepared in advance, waiting for me to obediently sign my name at whatever moment he decided it was convenient, walk away with nothing. I picked up the agreement. My hands were steady. Then I flipped to the final page, Appendix, Asset List. My eyes skimmed the entries, 3 properties, including the one we currently lived in, under Ryan's name. All company equity, under Ryan's name. Funds in joint accounts, most of them my premarital savings. Annotated, as the wife has no independent income. These funds are deemed the husband's personal property. Under my name, a few pieces of jewelry, and a 5-year-old car. I laughed. Softly, but in the silent bedroom. It sounded terrifyingly clear. Ryan shifted on the sofa. He didn't wake up. From the safe, I took out another file. The bank transfer records and notarized documents from before our marriage, the proceeds from selling my apartment, wired directly into Ryan's startup account, and a printed email from 5 years ago. From Ryan, baby, this money is a lifeline. When the company takes off, half the equity is yours. I swear. A vow. What a cheap thing. In the end, I spread the divorce agreement out on the coffee table and pulled Ryan's Montblanc fountain pen from the holder, twisted off the cap. On the line for Party B's signature, I wrote my name, Emily Carter, every stroke pressed deep into the paper. After signing, I slipped my copy into my bag and placed the original back into the safe. Then I stood up and picked up the suitcase I'd already packed. At the door, I paused and looked back once. Ryan was still asleep on the sofa, completely unaware of everything that had happened tonight. The rose petals were already beginning to wilt. I opened the door and stepped into the snowy New York night. The snow was falling harder now, but I wasn't cold anymore. 1 week later, San Francisco. Daniel's driver took me straight from the airport to a seaside villa, not a hotel, but his own place. Don't get the wrong idea, he said at the door, wearing a simple gray sweater, holding 2 cups of hot coffee. I just thought you'd need somewhere quiet to get over the jet lag. More comfortable than a hotel. I took the coffee. Thank you. The production team meets tomorrow, he said, leading me inside. The space was open, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gray-blue Pacific. You're the executive producer. You'll have final say. But I have one question. He turned to me. Why take this job? To get back at Ryan? I cradled the warm cup and shook my head. For myself, I said. To prove that without Ryan Blake, Emily Carter doesn't just survive, she thrives. 10,000 times better than him. Daniel studied me for a few seconds, then smiled. Good. He slid a thick proposal deck across the table. Then let's make this big. 2 weeks later, Ryan finally realized I was gone. When he made the first call, I was in the middle of the first planning meeting for the reality show, finalizing details with Netflix's representatives. Ryan flashed on my screen. I muted it and placed the phone face down on the table. Second call. Third call. Then a text from his assistant, Mrs. Blake. Mr. Ryan Blake is very concerned about you. Please call back as soon as possible. I replied, the divorce agreement has been signed. All legal matters should go through my attorney. Contact information below. 1 minute later, Ryan's calls came flooding in. I picked up my phone, stepped out onto the terrace outside the conference room, and answered. Emily, where the hell are you? His voice was explosive. Airport announcements blaring in the background. That agreement, who the fuck gave you permission to touch it? That was a legally binding document. Ryan. I cut in calmly. I've signed it. Your lawyer should be reaching out soon. Are you insane? Without me. What are you? Get your ass back here right now. We're talking face to face. About what? I watched the sun sinking into the horizon over the ocean. About how you converted my premarital assets into yours? About how you let Lily humiliate me on a live broadcast? Or about the divorce agreement you'd been keeping in your safe for 6 months? He choked on his words. Ryan, the game is over. I said. I'm done playing. You think you can just run? He hissed, lowering his voice. This is a small circle, Emily. 1 word from me and you're finished in North America. I laughed. Is that so? I turned back and looked through the glass doors at the heated discussion. Inside the conference room, several faces belonged to top-tier Hollywood producers. Then let's try it. I hung up, blocked every number he had. Another week passed. Lily delivered herself to me. I flew back to New York to handle the divorce paperwork and ran into her downstairs outside the law firm. She was clearly dressed to impress, carrying a new season Hermes bag. When she saw me, her eyes lit up and she clicked over in high heels. Well, fancy that. She sized me up. I was wearing simple black trousers and a white shirt. No visible logos. But she recognized it instantly, a custom Brunello Cucinelli piece, worth more than 3 of her bags combined. Her smile stiffened. Here for the divorce? She said, feigning sympathy. Honestly, was it really necessary? Ryan just has a bit of a temper. Deep down, he still cares about you. I didn't answer. I kept walking forward. She caught up with me and lowered her voice. But it's good you left. You know what Ryan promised me? 10% of the company's equity. You were with him for 5 years. What did you get? I pressed the up button for the elevator. Emily, are you jealous? She leaned in, her perfume sharp and overwhelming. Jealous that I'm young. I have a career. I can actually help him. And you? You're left with nothing but an empty wife's title, and you even managed to lose that. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. She followed. The doors closed. In the cramped space, she adjusted her hair against the mirror-polished metal wall, her tone light and smug. Oh, right. Ryan was with me last night. He said you're stiff and boring, like a block of wood. I lifted my head and looked at the security camera in the corner of the elevator. Then I turned back to her and met her eyes. Finished? I asked. She froze. Your performance is terrible, Lily, I said calmly. Sleeping your way to equity, are you proud of that? Want me to clap for you? Her face flushed instantly. You, me what? I stepped forward. She instinctively stepped back, her spine hitting the elevator wall. I don't have time to play some catfight fantasy with you. Move. The doors opened. My floor. I walked out. Behind me, I heard her shriek. Just wait. Ryan won't let this go. I didn't turn around, because I knew the real show hadn't even started. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, just as I was sitting in my lawyer's office reviewing clauses, the door was slammed open. Ryan stormed in, eyes bloodshot. Lily behind him, looking wronged, tears brimming. Emily, he pointed at me, his finger shaking. You pushed her? When did you become this vicious? My lawyer stood up. Mr. Blake, this is, get out. Ryan shoved him aside and strode straight toward me. Apologized to Lily. Now. I slowly closed the folder and looked up at him. I pushed her? Her wrist is bruised. Ryan yanked Lily's arm forward. Sure enough, there was a faint red mark around her pale wrist. In the elevator. And you still dare deny it? Lily sniffled softly. Ryan, forget it. Maybe Emily didn't mean to. Of course I didn't mean to, I said, standing up. I picked up my phone from the table, tapped a few times, then aimed it at the TV mounted on the wall and cast the screen. High definition. Silent elevator security footage began to play. On screen, I walked into the elevator. Lily followed. She leaned in close to speak to me while my back was turned. I turned around and took one step forward. She stepped back. From start to finish, I never touched her once. Instead, as she stumbled back, her own wrist scraped hard against the metal handrail inside the elevator. The footage ended. Dead silence filled the office. Lily's face went white. Ryan stared at the screen, breathing hard. I put my phone away. See it clearly now? I asked. Do you need it in slow motion? Or should I send it to the media and let the entire internet act as the jury? Ryan opened his mouth, then suddenly exploded. You set her up? You knew there was a camera in there? I didn't. I smiled. I just have a habit of protecting myself. When you deal with people like you, not keeping evidence is basically suicide. I picked up my bag and looked at my lawyer. We'll handle the rest online. The air in here isn't great. I walked toward the door. As I passed Ryan, he suddenly grabbed my arm. The grip was so tight it hurt to the bone. Emily, his voice dropped, carrying a tremor I had never heard before, almost pleading. Don't do this, let's go home and talk. Okay? Just the two of us. I looked at him, at the man who once consumed my every thought, now with panic, resentment, and a trace of unextinguished arrogance in his eyes. No. I pulled my arm free. The rules have changed. Ryan. I smoothed the sleeve he'd wrinkled. Now, I'm the one who decides. I walked out of the law firm. The sunlight outside was blinding. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. The team's waiting for you to come back for the final pitch. Also, NBC wants to do an interview with you about women returning to the workforce. Interested? I replied, yes. You set the time. Then I opened another chat, my private investigator. A connection Daniel had helped me find. Reliable and outrageously expensive. It's time. I typed. Anonymously submit the materials on Ryan's company's tax issues to the SEC. And that little trick where he diverted my premarital assets, it's time that saw daylight too. Send. I lifted my head and took a deep breath of New York's dry, freezing air. Between my ribs, a space that had been empty for a long time was filling with something solid and burning. That thing was power, choice, myself. 1 month later, Ryan's problems exploded all at once. First came the SEC notice of investigation. The stock dropped 15% overnight. Then several investors who had been close to closing suddenly pulled out, citing instability in the founder's marital situation and its impact on the company's image. After that, a long investigative piece ran in the Wall Street Journal, titled, "From Silicon Valley Darling to Liability, How Ryan Blake Drained His Wife's Premarital Assets." The article laid out, in detail, the records of my home sale and wire transfers, Ryan's emails promising equity, and the post-marriage maneuvers that moved all assets under his name. Lily wasn't mentioned, but the implication of personal misconduct was unmistakable. Ryan blew up every way of contacting me. He even tried to pressure me through my parents. My parents only called once. "Emily, are you sure?" my mom asked. "Divorce isn't a small thing." "I'm sure," I said. He humiliated me in front of the entire world. "Mom." There was a long silence on the line. Then I heard my father's voice, low, steady. "Then make it clean. If you need help, the family has lawyers." Tears surged up without warning. I sniffed and said, "No need. I can handle it." "We know," my mom said softly. "You always have." After the call, I sat on the terrace of the California villa, watching the Pacific sunset burn the sky into gold and crimson. Daniel walked over with a plate of sliced fruit and set it beside me. "Cried?" he asked, casually. "No." I wiped my face. Sand in my eyes. He didn't call me out. He sat down on the lounge chair next to mine. "Ryan's company valuation is down 40%, he said, looking out at the ocean. "The board gave him an ultimatum, fix the public narrative within a month, or they replace him as CEO. I speared a piece of mango. "What about Lily?" "Still around, supposedly, but the equity promise fell through. Ryan can barely save himself now." Daniel paused. "Do you want to see him? If not, I can make sure he never finds you." I thought for a moment. "I'll see him," I said. "Some things need to be said face to face." We agreed to meet at a secluded cafe in Silicon Valley. Ryan arrived early. He'd lost a lot of weight. Dark circles hung heavily under his eyes, and the hair that had once been impeccably styled was slightly disheveled. When he saw me walk in, his eyes lit up for a brief second, then dimmed again. I pulled out the chair across from him and sat down without ordering anything. "You look good," he said hoarsely. "I am." I nodded. "I really am." He clasped his hands together, his knuckles white. "Emily, I know I was wrong. I was misled by Lily. I lost my head. But in my heart, it was always you. Believe me." I didn't respond. "Let's start over, okay?" He leaned forward, his eyes bloodshot. "I'll transfer half the company to you." "No. 60%. We'll sign it in writing. You can have all the houses. Just come back, Ryan." I interrupted. He stopped, looking at me with fragile hope. "Do you remember what you said on our wedding day?" I asked. He froze. "You said you'd make me the happiest woman in the world." I smiled faintly. "Instead, you turned me into a joke for the entire internet, into the trophy wife you supported, into a fool who couldn't even protect her own marital assets." "Those words weren't sincere. It was for the show. It was Lily, you allowed it," I said, locking eyes with him. "You condoned it. Deep down, you really believed I deserved that." His mouth opened, but no words came out. "I didn't come here today to listen to your confession." I took a document out of my bag and slid it across the table. "This is the final version of the divorce agreement. I've already signed it. Look it over. If there's no issue, sign it. The lawyers will handle the rest." He didn't even look at it. He grabbed my hand instead. "Emily, don't do this, please. What am I supposed to do without you?" His palm was warm, trembling. Once, that warmth could have softened me 10,000 times over. Now, it just made my skin crawl. I pulled my hand back, took out a wet wipe, and carefully wiped the back of my hand where he'd touched me. The gesture froze him completely. "You'll survive, Ryan." I stood up. "Just like you did these past 5 years, without my blood-sucking. You still lived pretty well. Now you're just going back to the starting point." I picked up my bag. "Oh, right." At the door, I turned back and smiled at him. "Do you know why the third password on your safe was my birthday?" He stared at me blankly. "Because you never bothered to change it," I said. Just like you forgot I used to be an investment banking VP who could stand on her own. Forgot my money saved your company. Forgot what I gave up for you. You never really remembered me, Ryan. You only remembered the symbol of your wife. And now, that symbol has been deactivated. I pushed the door open. Sunlight flooded in. Outside the cafe, a black SUV was parked. Daniel was leaning against the door, waiting for me. I walked over. All said? He asked. All said. I opened the car door. The engine started. We drove away. In the rearview mirror, Ryan was still sitting by the cafe window, like a statue frozen in time, smaller and smaller until he disappeared. 6 months later, the survival reality show I produced, Extreme Rebirth, launched on Netflix. In its first week, global views surpassed 100 million, becoming a full-blown phenomenon. The media called me the year's biggest surprise producer, and venture capital legend Daniel Chen's golden partner. My photo landed on the cover of Forbes, with the headline, Emily Carter, from parasitic ex-wife to queen of capital. The divorce had long been finalized. Under the weight of the evidence I had anonymously submitted, Ryan's company was eventually acquired at a low price by a competitor. He cashed out, not poorly, but far from his peak, and with his reputation in ruins. Lily had taken a chunk of money and fled to Europe before the acquisition. It was said she burned through it quickly and then vanished. As for me, I had my own production company in the California sunshine, an elite team, and a career that made me wake up every morning excited. And there was Daniel. He stayed by my side. Never too close, never too far, bringing me coffee during all-night crunches, shielding me from cameras when the media swarmed, giving me a small, easy-to-care-for cactus when I received my first Emmy nomination. Congratulations, he said, and don't put so much pressure on yourself. You're already more than enough. At the celebration party that night, we stood on the villa terrace overlooking San Francisco's glittering lights. The ocean wind carried a hint of salt. Emily, Daniel said suddenly. There's something I've been thinking about for a long time. He turned to face me. No ring, no flowers, just an earnest expression. I'd like to formally pursue you. I froze. Not because you're beautiful or capable, or because of any external labels, he said slowly, each word deliberate, but because you're Emily Carter, clear-headed, brave, ruthless with yourself, gentle with the world. He paused. You can refuse. You can hesitate. You can take all the time you need. None of that will change what we have now. I'll still be your best partner and strongest supporter. I just want you to know, he said, meeting my eyes. Someone truly sees you. Not Ryan Blake's ex-wife. Not a hit producer. Just you. The sound of waves rolled in. My nose stung. Daniel. I took a breath. I might not be completely ready yet. I know. He smiled. That's why I said you can take your time. I'm very patient. He took a step back, his tone returning to its usual ease. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., the Amazon meeting. Don't be late. He went back inside. I stayed on the terrace for a long time, looking toward the distant horizon. The block of ice around my heart was melting. Silently. Another New Year's Eve. This year, Times Square's countdown screen showed no financial interviews, only a dazzling light show. I was in New York, making final preparations for a new program. Daniel was in Los Angeles, at his parents' place. 5 minutes before midnight, he video called. On screen, he stood in a warm living room with a fireplace behind him, wearing a soft sweater, his hair relaxed. Counting down yet? He asked. Almost. I turned the camera toward the window. Times Square was a sea of people. Look, wall to wall. Yeah. He was quiet for a moment. Then, Emily. Yeah? The second year has passed, he said, and I still like you. Even more than the first year. My heart skipped. In the distance, the deafening countdown began. 10, 9, 8. The crowd roared. Confetti flew. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. Fireworks exploded across the sky, cascades of gold and silver lighting up all of New York. Into the thunderous cheers, I looked at the screen and mouthed a single word. Okay. On the other side of the screen, Daniel's eyes lit up like fireworks. I heard that, he said with a smile. Happy New Year, Emily. Happy New Year, Daniel. I ended the call and leaned against the hotel's floor-to-ceiling window. Outside, fireworks kept blooming. The old year died completely. The new one arrived in force. My phone buzzed with messages of congratulations. None from Ryan. He had vanished entirely from my world, as if he had never existed. I lifted my hand. On my ring finger, at some point, a simple platinum band now rested. Not an engagement ring. A rite of passage ring. A solemn confirmation, to myself, to my past, to my new life. I clenched my fist. The ring pressed against my bone. Solid and real. Then I turned back to the desk piled high with documents, opened my laptop, and began to work. Lights blazing, the road ahead vast, and me, finally free.